Good Saturday evening to you, those of you who are joining me for Yeshua 101. Well, tonight is going to be my testimony. This no sermon per se, but it's going to be my own personal testimony. As I've stated in the last videos, the phase one of Yeshua 101 is now over. And what I call phase one is the details on why Christ came, died for us, why he was born as a human, because he always existed, he is God, why he died for us, what his death meant for us, all the benefits we received from his death, and now phase two is going to be just getting to know him more personally through his life. Actually, his life. When he was here on earth, growing up, doing his earthly ministry. I've already started working on that, actually. But I did say that before I was going to do that, starting phase two, got a lot of thoughts in my head. I was going to give my own personal testimony. And I feel a little about it, not because I don't want to share it. I shared my testimony all the time. It's just this particular channel, I wanted it to be all about Jesus Christ. And, in praying, the Lord revealed to me that, and I've been preaching this. So it's like when it comes to me, I guess it's like I just don't want attention on myself. But I'd be doing wrong if I didn't share my testimony, because I've said it before, our testimonies glorify God. If it's not just the same old song and dance story all the time, that we're like exalting ourselves and bragging about ourselves, but we're actually saying what Christ did in our lives, then it is glorifying him. So it's still keeping to the mission of this channel. I'm telling y'all what Jesus Christ did in my life, and just sharing with y'all all the pain and hurt that I went through. So I'm going to go ahead and start a song that came out during this time. Actually, at the very beginning of everything, this song came out, and I'll explain this song too. So it's called Tell Me Lord. It's an original song. How can I lead someone? How can I do for you if I am not so sure what exactly to do? How can I spread your word to those that need to hear? Please help me, Lord my God, and calm my fears. Tell me, Lord, how can I win the battle against so damaging sin? Tell me, Lord, how I come to you to find His truth. Give me, Lord, give me the strength to overcome what's keeping me away from grace. Tell me, Lord, tell me your word. Let me hear it from you, Lord. Let me hear it from you, Lord. Your grace has set me free. I'm no longer bound by sin. How I want to shout out loud what you did for me. Give me the words to say to make your gospel shine. Oh Lord, how I want to share my joy this time. Tell me, Lord, how can I win the battle against so damaging sin? Tell me, Lord, how I come to you to find what's true. Give me, Lord, give me the strength to overcome what's keeping me away from grace. Tell me, Lord, tell me your words, let me hear it from you, Lord. Let me hear it from you, Lord. All I wanna do for you is what you have me do, to gather up your fields and win for you. Bless me and guide my way to help those who've gone astray, to prove your love is now and always here to stay. Tell me, Lord, how can I win the battle against old damaging sin? Tell me, Lord, how I come to you to find what's true. Give me, Lord, give me the strength to overcome what's keeping me away from grace. Tell me, Lord, tell me your words, let me hear from you, Lord. Tell me, Lord, and give me the strength to overcome what's keeping me away from grace. Tell me, Lord, tell me your words, let me hear from you, Lord. Let me hear from you, tell me, Lord. Father God, I just ask you that whoever needs to hear this testimony, Lord, I pray that you have let them hear. And that I hope this is a heartfelt testimony and just I'm telling the whole truth of what you did for me, how you rescued me. And the delay was my fault. The delay was my fault. But you were always there for me, taking care of me throughout all these years. Lord, thank you. And I hope this testimony is a blessing to the right person that needs to hear it. Amen. Well, that song, Tell Me Lord, I wrote that about, let's see, let me do my math, 2003. So 2023 was 20 years. It's, wow, 25 years ago. That song is a quarter of a century old. Yet it's new because I've never published it, I've never recorded it. It's not out there. So it's new, but it's old. Anyway, that's my little joke. But that song actually started out as a poem. It was a poem, and it was a heartfelt poem. And what had happened was I was in a lot of ups and downs, and this was really a down because this is when everything what I felt was my whole world crashing down. And I was struggling to get out because I knew what I needed to do. I knew I couldn't stay where I was. I knew I had something to do for the Lord. But I was just, that was my outcry. So it was a poem. And I was basically it was a prayer that became a poem that became a song. And I was just asking the Lord, I go, tell me what to do basically. I knew what the word said, but I wasn't following it. This was wow, my early 20s, and what led to what I call my decline. Everything was going good. I was a young man and I was engaged. And I had already gotten the apartment that we were going to live in. I mean, her parents, my parents were calling it the honeymoon cottage. And everything, I mean, I was a happy man. I was nervous, obviously, but I was a happy man. I was fixing to get married to somebody that I really loved. And at this time, we were dating about maybe 2.5 years. But we known each other for years because we were kids in the church where I used to go to. And so we known each other for a long time and then just started dating. And then about 2.5 years in, we decided we are going to get married. Well, we had already gotten the apartment. I moved in first, got the furniture, and then after we were married, she was going to move in. We were doing everything the right way. And well, man, everything just fell apart. And what happened was, this is where the other decline came in. I was backstabbed by my own family. By this time, my dad had, because we had broken up and then we started dating again. And we were going to resume getting married. By this time, my dad had already passed away. So all that was left was my stepmother. And then I had a half uncle. Well, basically behind my back. And I knew things were changing because, her attitude and everything. And I'm not saying I was the perfect boyfriend, fiance. I mean, I had problems too. I mean, I was arrogant. I didn't mean to be, but I was disrespectful sometimes. And it's like typical couples having their problems. It ain't like I was a major beast and then she was not a major beastess. I don't know what you want to call that. We have our problems. I'm not saying I was, on my end, I was not perfect. But I sure as heck did not deserve what I got. And what I got was people behind my back planning on her and my uncle getting together. I found out later when everything was spilled out. Um, People that I loved and trusted didn't give a hoot about me, to the point where I was thinking, was I really that bad that my own family did this to me? People that I loved and trusted, I had nobody else. I mean, yes, I had the Lord, but when you're young like that and everything's happening to you, it's like physically, I didn't have nobody to confide in. Even my own brother and his family sided with them, made fun of me. And like, I'm like, I had nowhere to turn. And it seemed like everywhere I went, even the church, and I couldn't even go to that church anymore because they were there. My ex was there, who's now dating my uncle. Her family's there, and they always told me, I don't know, maybe I'm starting to like thinking that, what did they know for the longest time? Even when things were really good and we're planning the wedding, they always told me, we love you. We've known you since you were 10 years old. Um, if things don't work out with you, and I'm not gonna mention her name, blah blah blah, you know, you're always family to us. You're always family to us. Well, that was a big old fat lie because they turned against me. Couldn't call them, couldn't do anything. They let it be known that I was not welcome. And it's a terrible time. It's a terrible time. Even thinking about it right now, and I gotta explain something. I've said it before. Who I am now is not who I was back then. So I still got the memories, obviously, but there's really not emotional attachment that I'm hurt anymore. Let me explain to you. It's like if you watch a movie, a disturbing movie. Let's say you just watch a movie about a true crime that happened, and you're watching that movie, and it goes into gory details, and you're left feeling very like, ooh, like I don't ever want to see that movie again. Now, the things that happen, the situations that happened in that movie was not yours. It didn't happen to you, but you were emotionally, it was bad stuff. That's how it kind of is with me. That old life was Audie's life, the man that I used to be. Y'all know me as Cyrus now. That's who I am now. I don't really have emotional attachments to that, but I know what happened, and it's like, ooh, that's bad. I don't even want to think. Poor Audie. Honestly, poor Audie. That's bad stuff. Well, that was the beginning of, in my old life, my decline. And when you feel like you have no one to turn to, especially family, I mean, you start spiraling down pretty quick. So, lost my fiance to an uncle. Couldn't go to anybody because my dad was already gone. And the day that my dad passed away was the day that I knew that the only person that loved me unconditionally was gone from this earth. You're saying, but Cyrus, there's the Lord. Yeah, there's the Lord. But let me remind you, I'm a young man in my 20s. I'm going through all this mess. I wasn't thinking about God then. I was thinking about who can I go to talk to. I used to go to my dad's house all the time. Whenever I felt down, whenever I felt sad, whenever I felt angry, I would go and visit my dad and we would just talk. He'd be on his recliner, I'd be on the other recliner, and we would just talk. And just visiting him made me feel better. And now he wasn't here anymore. Like I told you, my own brother made fun of me and turned against me and basically sided with them. I remember this one story where he said that, hey, guess who I saw at a blah 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 restaurant today? I think it was called Colonial Restaurant or something like that. And I go, who? And he said, blah blah blah. The name of the family, my would be in-laws. And so his wife said, "Hey, don't be telling him that." And this was his reaction. He was like, "What? They didn't do nothing to me. I don't care." He actually said that. That's how sensitive my own brother is, you know. And so, well, that was the last time I visited them for a very long time. I mean, I was already like emotionally distraught, couldn't go anywhere. I would break down crying. I would see couples together. I would drive by places where we used to go. And it was just, I had nowhere to go, nobody that understood me. So I left. Well, before I left, though, I got very deeply depressed. I'm talking, I was wanting basically to commit suicide. I was actually thinking about it. The only thing that stopped me was my belief. This is my belief. I'm not saying this is what it is, but this is my belief. And now that I've grown in the faith, I can actually back it up again. But that's me. I'm not saying anything else, but this is my belief. Back then, if you commit suicide, if you take your own life, you're going to hell. Now that I've grown in the faith, it's confirmed to me because if you get to the point where you commit suicide, this is me again, but just my belief and my faith. If you're at the point where you're going to commit suicide, you don't have the hope, which is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is that hope. I still had that hope. It was very tiny. The depression, the anger, mainly the depression at this point in time, I hadn't become angry yet, was so strong that my faith was very small. But what does Jesus say? If you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, which is very small, you can move mountains. You can tell this mountain to move and it will obey you. The mountain is not a physical mountain, otherwise we'd all be dying. It's the mountains in our lives. It's the trials in our lives. It's the mess in our lives. Okay? I still had that little hope. And plus, I was scared. I didn't want to kill myself and then wake up in hell, you know? But I remember lying in the middle of my living room in my apartment, which was going to be our honeymoon, our very first place to live. Now it was just my apartment. Laying on the floor. I didn't even want to wake up anymore. I dreaded the morning coming. I did not want to get up. I did not want to eat. I did not want to do anything. I didn't want to watch TV. I did not want to do anything. I just wanted to stay asleep. And when you're depressed, when you're really depressed, you can sleep a long time. You can sleep a very long time. And at this point, I had slept about 14 hours. It was dark when I went to sleep, and it was dark when I woke up. I mean, in between, I did wake up, but all I did was just roll over, went back to sleep. I cried myself to sleep. I did not want to be awake. Because all I could think about was the woman that I loved was now enjoying her life with somebody else that happened to be my uncle. And, well, when I finally did wake up, I felt that I had wasted the whole day. So that made me feel even more depressed. I felt like I let the Lord down. I didn't understand how Jesus really felt at this point in time. I just thought he's mad at me because I wasted time. I didn't go to church. I didn't, witness. I didn't do anything that I was supposed to do. I didn't have the faith that I needed to have. So I felt I let him down. He was angry with me. Again, this is before I knew how Jesus really feels about us during our times of depression. So that song came about. And again, that was my prayer at first. I felt bad about wasting time, and I wanted to serve again. I wanted to resume going again, and it's so very hard. It's so very hard. When your heart is broken and your spirit is broken, it's very hard. But I knew to ask the Lord for help, so that's where the words came in. You know, how can I do for you? How can I lead someone if I'm not exactly sure what to do, what exactly to do? I don't know what to do. I'm confused. I'm depressed. I'm just so sad. I don't know what to do, but I know I need to do it. Later on, the melody came to me, and it's the Holy Spirit giving me that melody, and it became the song that I just did, Tell Me Lord. And through the years, that song has meant more and more and more as I was healing. And now that I'm in this life as Cyrus, that's my mission. That's my mission. I got it now, you know. But after that song came about, I started attending this other church where my brother and my cousins went. My cousins were the musicians at this church. They were three brothers. Kind of sort of grew up with them. They were older than me. And my other cousin that I wound up singing with at another church years later, he was there. He was their bassist. So I started attending this church, and I liked it. It felt good getting back in the church. I didn't have to go to the church where I once was, where now my enemies were, because they weren't my family anymore. And I was. This is where the anger started coming in. I resented them. I resented them. I resented them. And by the way, the suicide part, I went ahead a little bit to it. I was actually planning on getting a whole bunch of pills and just popping them. You know, I ain't gonna do this, and I ain't gonna do this. I don't like pain, so I was just gonna take the easy way out. I was sleeping already anyway. Take a whole bunch of pills and just go. Well, I didn't go through with it, obviously. But anyway, that's the suicide concept that I was thinking about. So at this church, you know, I used to go on Mondays where they would have practice, and that was a struggle because I wanted to be there to be amongst family that I already started building up the walls. I still didn't really trust them, but they hadn't done nothing to me. They certainly weren't making fun of me over what happened, and some of them already knew what happened, and they were giving me a shoulder to lean on and everything. So I would go after work and meet them to practice. I wasn't a musician there yet, and I was enjoying watching them. I was enjoying listening to the songs. I was enjoying not having to be at home by myself. But at the same time, I was angry because the sadness came in because all of my cousins were married. Some of them had kids already. So we were all the same when we were there, but then when the practice was over, they were all going home to their wives that loved them. They were all going home to their children that loved them. And then I was going home by myself. The sadness came right back. The depression came right back because I was happy while I was there. And like I said, I felt like we're all equal. And then at the end of the practice, which was about 2 hours, and I'm not crying. It's just I was sick this past week, so I got sinuses. I'm not crying. I can prove it to you. See my eyes? I ain't crying. Just sinuses. At the end of the practice, like I said, they're all going home to their families, and I'm going home by myself. So that got hard for me, but eventually I introduced that song because at this church they had what was called gospel night, which was the last Sunday night uh, the last Sunday night, and they, because they had morning and Sunday night service of the month. It was the last Sunday night of the month, and it was gospel night. I loved it. It was about an hour and a half to 2 hours, however long the service went, of just testimonies and music, special music. And so I introduced that song, and my cousins helped me put it together. The wrong melody. I can laugh about it now, but it kind of ticked me off back then. I mean, that one cousin that was the leader, I'm just being honest. I mean, he was very, very arrogant. I mean, he intimidated me when I was a kid because he's older than me. I wasn't comfortable around him. Now that we're adults, the intimidation is gone. We actually get along good. But the dude still was arrogant. Very arrogant. And it's like I'm introducing the song and he takes off on a melody that honestly he's already used for other songs. So I didn't argue with it. I wanted to do it for gospel night, so I wound up doing it. But well, I can show you the melody. Okay, this is the way I heard it in my head and how I did it tonight. Okay, that's what I did tonight. This dude just takes off doing it like not the same song, but anyway, did it for gospel night. Everybody liked it. I would remember this one sister dancing in the front, but it wasn't what I actually wanted. And years later, finally got to do it the way I heard it in my head. So I attended that church. I even later on became a musician there. The services were split for a time because it had grown so much they had to split the service. So there was a Sunday morning service at 10 and then a 2 o'clock service in the afternoon, which was us. It was me, that cousin that I told you was their bassist. He became the bassist for this one, another bassist for the other group. My brother and another singer, and we were the 2 o'clock band. Well, later on they got a bigger building, so there was no more 2 o'clock service, no more 2 o'clock band. But the pastor let us be the Sunday night group. So we did that for a little while until the whole thing disbanded. During this time, my anger is growing towards my ex and her family, my brother too, because we just did not get along. And I'm just being honest here. My big brother, I loved him. I wanted to be around him. I needed family. He treated me so bad and like a jerk, and it's like, that's the truth. We just didn't get along. He hurt me more than he embraced me. There were some good times, and I cherished those good times when we had those good times. But he hurt me more than he helped me. So I had to just finally give him to the Lord. But again, that was actually years later. At this point in time, I'm getting angry. I'm starting to blame God for a lot of these things. And that's where, because I've told y'all before, that I went for about almost 3 years thinking I was an atheist, when in reality I was just very angry with God. But I blamed him for everything that happened to me. I blamed him because I thought, and I wasn't even that big of a good of a Christian, still ain't, but I'm trying. My heart is for the Lord. Back then, it was like, I'm just going to go to church and that's what I need to do. I'm going to play music and that's what I need to do. I'm going to sing every once in a while. That's what I need to do. My heart really wasn't fully in there because it was already damaged. It was already getting black with spiritual disease from everything that I'm going through. Well, I still thought in my mind, well, I'm going to church, I'm singing, I'm doing this, I'm blah, 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 this, and you let this happen to me. You let these people hurt me. So I got mad at God and I said, I'm done with you. And I actually used curse words. And I said, I'm done with you. And then I was flipping my mind and I'm saying, you ain't real. You're not real. How can somebody, a loving God, allow this to happen to their child? I wound up saying that phrase I don't know how many times. But I said, how? You're not real. You can't be real. This happened to me, so that proves you are not real. There is no God. There is no angels. There is no Trinity. There's no nothing. There's nothing. All we are is we just living here, and then when we die, the worms will eat us. That's all it is. That's all it is. And I had that mindset and was telling myself to think that. I had to actually tell myself to think that. But eventually got to the point where I actually believed that for a while. People would try to talk to me about God. I'd say, I was like, nah. And it hurt when I said that. So there was the little faith again that never really left me, but still it was so small. All I felt was it hurt to deny God. But I still denied him because my anger flared up and I blamed him again. And I used to say, I'm not going to say what my uncle was, but, well, I used to say, so you gave my fiance the love of my life, the one that I want to be with, to that. I am nothing compared to that. And you let her go to him. Now they got a family, oh, blah, 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 and all this and that. All these people turning their back on me. What did I do to deserve this? You are not a just God. And enough of that, enough of that, enough of that, to the point where I really thought I was an atheist. I flat out believed all we are was living here. When we die, we're worm food. That's all. And eventually, those became the loneliest years of my life because I turned away from God because I was angry with him. I blamed him for everything. I even said, this is going to come into play later, crazy, before I moved out of that apartment, because I had to get out of there, I actually had a shouting match with God again. Now, and see, if you're a real atheist, you don't believe in God. You don't. I wasn't a real atheist because every once in a while when I got at my angriest, I kept yelling at God. And you know how apartment walls tend to be. I know the neighbors heard me yelling several times. And Saturday nights were the loneliest times, and Sundays were the loneliest times for me. During the week, I was busy at work. I worked. I was tired. I came home. I ate. I plopped on the bed and I went to sleep. But it was Saturdays and Sundays that I was off. They were the loneliest days of my life. So those were the angriest evenings of my life. And I used to yell at him and cuss at him, and I would shake my fist at him. I even do the bird. I'm being honest with you. I'm telling y'all everything. And I said, why did you even make me be born? You who formed us in our mother's womb, the creator, why did you allow me to be born? Was it so you could laugh at me, so I could be your personal joke? Is that why you let me be born? Oh, I was mad. I was so mad. Well, no matter what people tried to do for me, I've met some new friends, the new pastor that the church I was going to, my cousins that showed me love. my heart was already damaged. It was stone cold, black, spiritually black. I just pretended to smile. I just pretended to whatever. And I would just go home and I would curse them. They didn't even do anything to me, but I had cursed them because I said, well, what did y'all do to deserve a wife and kids? I don't see nothing more special about y'all than what I'm doing. Why did y'all end up with a loving, faithful person to marry and have loving kids? I was very mad. So I left. I left. Right before I left, though, I had met this couple at the church. And he was fixing to take over the choir. I'm sorry, the choir. The lady that was in charge of the choir had left the church and went to another church. So this person was going to take over the choir. Well, I got to be good friends with him and his wife. More him, but they invited me over to the house to like fellowship and have dinner and of course practice. He played the guitar, I played the bass. Well, the drums and the bass, but at his house, the bass. And one night after practice and we ate a little bit, we just sat around in the living room and talked. And his wife kept staring at me like we were talking and she would talk, but then every once she just kept looking at me like concerned, and I'm like, I was kind of getting ticked off, and I'm like, what in the heck is your problem? I was thinking that in my head. And she goes, I'm not gonna say his name, but she goes, blah blah blah. Let me ask the brother something. And I hated being called brother because I just felt like it was all you know. And I was almost leaving that church because I just had enough. Like I told you, I didn't believe in God no more. I just went to go at this point. But I hated being called brother, you know. And anyway, she goes, let me ask the brother something. And she goes, hermano, you're angry with God, aren't you? Now, here's the significance on this. I had not opened up about anything. They knew I was single, but I didn't tell them why. I had not told them anything. Nothing at all. And see, I had just barely met them. Probably known them about 4 weeks at this point. This was our first getting together thing. I certainly did not tell them anything, and I certainly did not tell them being members and strong members of the church, that I was cussing at God and yelling at God and really didn't believe in God. Whoa. Something moved. But it's like, did not tell them anything. So I'm looking at her, and at this point, I'm got my head down, and I'm just standing up. Not standing up, but I looked up at her, and I go. She goes, I can tell you're angry with him. And see, when I get nervous, I tend to do this thing, and she noticed that too. But I was just listening, and she goes, just hear me out, brother. She goes, you were yelling at him a few days ago, weren't you? I'm like, yes. And see, about this time, I'm trying to keep my composure because I'm like, where is this coming from? She then told me, she goes, brother, I'm going to tell you, I have the gift of discernment, and the Holy Spirit speaks to me. And you are very hurt right now. Your heart is broken. And you're angry with him. He knows you are angry and you blame him. Again, did not tell these people anything. And then this is what really got me, because I've heard people say that before. Oh, I'm gifted in discernment and the Holy Spirit speaks to me. I even tell y'all that now because he really does. It's all true, for real. But At this point in my life, I'm like, I've heard this before, blah, 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 whatever. No, this is what the hook was. She goes, I'm going to tell you what you told him. And I'm like, okay. She said everything verbatim, minus the cuss words, verbatim, everything I said to God, only between me and God, in my anger, in my hurt, every single exact word I said to God came out of her mouth. I mean, man, y'all, even the part where I told y'all, where I said, why did you let me be born? Am I just your personal joke? Am I here so you can laugh at me? Came out of her mouth. Can't nobody tell me God is not real. Okay? But even then, knowing that, it flipped me from like, okay, I can't be an atheist no more. Not that I ever was. That's when I realized I'm just mad at you. I'm just mad at you, God. But you're there because I'm always talking to you. But I just don't want to serve you. I don't. I want you to leave me alone. And I don't want to do anything for you. But that was the start of me coming back out. But I still continued to decline. There was still years. I'm going to just tell y'all right now. I may have mentioned it in the earlier videos, but I was in a 20-year prison in my head with depression, bitterness, and anger. 20 years. 20 years of me trying to come out of it. Trying to leave it at God's feet and just picking it back up and taking it back with me again. I wound up leaving. I just didn't want to be around nobody anymore. I was embarrassed. I felt like people were laughing at me. Found out that people were laughing at me, my own family, making fun of me. How do you think I felt on that? I already knew I didn't really have nobody to go to. And then the family members that I told you about that were saying, well, they didn't do nothing to me. But they were making fun of me. I heard it through other family members. So I felt like a big old joke, a big old punching bag. And I decided I got to leave. I wound up going to Grand Prairie. And I was living in Saginaw, Texas. I ended up in Grand Prairie. And as luck would have it, I don't really believe in luck, but that's the saying. I believe it's all God's providence, God's control. And it's hard to see what God is doing at the time because I brought a message on that before where when it seems like your whole world is falling apart and crashing down, actually God is behind the scenes putting everything back together. Well, in living in Grand Prairie, I got me a new job. The job was actually in North Richland Hills. My car broke down. I don't even know what happened. Well, I know what it is now, but back then I didn't know enough about cars. But it turns out with the symptoms and all that, my fuel pump went out. Well, I didn't know that. All I knew is my car would not start. It would just turn over. It wouldn't start. I didn't have money to fix it. And the apartment that I was in, I was paying every 2 weeks on it. It wasn't a monthly rent. It was every 2 weeks. Well, without work, I couldn't get no money. And I wound up losing the apartment. This is when I first became homeless. But I was in Grand Prairie and I was trying to find a job. And I would go walking through the neighborhood and there was an Albertsons there. And I remember shopping before all the money ran out And I was looking at the Butcher Block, which is the full service meat and seafood counter. I saw a person back there working, and I'm just thinking in my saddened heart, I'm like, man, after this dude is done working, he's going to go home. And I was looking at losing my home in just a matter of a few days. I was counting down the days. I was like, man, in a few days, I'm going to be homeless. But I got the little groceries that I did, and I walked all the way back to home, and I went trying to look for a job, and nothing was happening. There were some warehouse jobs over there that I applied for. They didn't need nobody, and I wound up being homeless, stuck in Grand Prairie. When before, when I had a car, I could go anywhere I needed to, but now I was stuck in Grand Prairie on foot, no job, no running out of money. I literally, I think, only had. I wound up selling the car for $160. $160. That's all they would give me for it. And that money quickly dwindled down, and all I had was literally nothing. A what do you call it? A clothes basket with my belongings, a small TV. I tried to sell the TV so I could get me a hotel room. They didn't want it. I had enough money for one night of a hotel, and the rest I knew I would have to keep for food. And the hotel was cheap. It was $25 back then. Nice hotel. Next door to the Albertsons. And yeah, I wound up staying there. And then the next day, I took all of my belongings to a park. It wasn't really a park, but it looked like a park. It was like the street, and then all these trees. It was very shady, and even on rainy days, I could kind of go there and kind of be hit a little bit from the rain with the trees. To look at it now, you would never could tell, because I went back to Grand Prairie about a few months ago, where I just wanted to see. I hadn't been there since when was the last time I was there was 2011. Whoa, it changed. That little park is not even there no more. It's like a highway, and it's a highway where it's like they dug. So it's like you're looking at it, and it's like the highway's down there. I mean, they dug a big old deep hole and made it into a highway. I'm like, it was unrecognizable. I don't even recognize that neighborhood anymore. And to think I used to walk through there all the time, and now can't walk through there anymore. It's a big old highway in the way, and a low one at that. So you got to go all the way around. But yeah, I wound up sleeping in this wooded area because I needed to hide. I was worried about the cops getting me, and plus I'm embarrassed because I'm homeless now. And all I had as a roof over my head is when I turned the clothes basket around and covered my head. I did it. It didn't make a darn bit of sense, but I felt like I had a home if I put the clothes basket over my head. At least I had a kind of a roof, and I had a blanket. That was it. I didn't have no cell phone. I didn't know what time it was. I wound up getting a job at Labor Ready. Those work today, get paid today places. And you had to be there at 5:30 in the morning to have a good shot at getting a job. And I couldn't tell what time it was because I didn't have anything. I didn't have a radio. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a watch. I didn't have nothing. All I knew was that when the traffic, the noise of the traffic would pick up. Well, actually, pick up. Yeah, pick up. Because in the evening time, of course, there's not too many people driving through there. I knew that whenever I could hear cars starting to go, and it was still dark, dew. There's dew. My blanket was wet. It was kind of cold. But I knew when I started hearing cars driving more through the road, it was time to get up. And so I'd get up, I'd dress myself. And back then I had hair, thick hair. I would do my best to make it neat because I didn't have money to get a haircut. Not a problem now, but back then, thick hair, thick hair. And I would walk where I was and I would hide my stuff behind another tree as best as I could because I didn't want people to steal it or throw it away. And I would walk to the labor ready. I'd already see a line of people there. And sometimes I would get there very early because, again, I didn't know what time it was. I would look through the window and it would, sometimes I'd be there at 4:30 in the morning. But again, no clue what time it was. I was just guessing. And I was blessed to be able to get jobs. Anyway, guys, this is turning out to be a very long testimony. And I try to keep the videos and slash services at about an hour. So it's going to be, I guess, a two-parter. I don't want to say too much because it's going to be a very long video. And I'm being respectful of y'all watching and, but we'll end it right there for now. And I'm going to come back again tomorrow and I will finish it because I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the whole testimony. But that's where it ended up at. Labor ready. I don't see too many labor readies around anymore. I hope they're still around because it helped me out a lot. Not the best jobs to get, but look, I'm going to tell you something else. Even though I wasn't really close to God at this point, I was still angry with him. Still had anger and bitterness in me. He took care of me because I'm going to tell y'all, I was homeless, but I suffered, but then I didn't suffer. God was with me the whole time. So that's coming up on part 2. And honestly, now that I think about it, I don't know how many parts it's going to be. But I'm going to tell y'all my whole testimony. So again, thank you for joining me. I hope that this testimony so far is a blessing to somebody that may be going through something similar. As deep of a hatred and anger that you may be feeling toward God, He does not feel that towards you. And I'm living proof, and I'm sharing my testimony to you. I'm not making none of this up. I'm telling you, I know for a fact you cannot make God not love you. Okay, because I'm proof. I'm proof. And also how God takes care of you even when you don't want nothing to do with Him. Proof. And that's coming up on the second part of my testimony. God bless all of y'all. Be safe. I hope you can join me again for the other parts whenever you can. If this ministry is a blessing to you, please do me a favor and like on the videos. I see a lot of views, but I don't see a lot of likes. And it's the likes that help this channel grow, that'll help this ministry grow. If you do consider this your mini church as well, even if it's just a supplement, you're going to a regular church and this is just an added supplement, subscribe and help this ministry grow. Okay, I'm Cyrus. I will see y'all. I love y'all. Y'all take care.